Okay, just going to do a general video on the effects that I have received from LSD at varying doses, as requested by Stalkerloh. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right or remember that correctly. I am not looking at my YouTube at the moment. So we'll start off with my most frequent dose, which is roughly 100 micrograms. You can never be too sure. This could be 90 to 110 micrograms, depending on whether your tab's slightly maldistributed or whether it's been in the sun for a little bit of time. So this is what what you call the borderline dose, and I don't know. I find with this dose that I do trip, but not very hard. I feel like this is the start of the physical effects, the start of the kind of weirdness, and the start of sort of the body heating effect that you get from LSD. This is where it starts. I never really get anything mystical from this. I get a little bit of strangeness, but not really anything serious. Although I would note that at this point I do get quite a nice physical sensation, and I find that LSD at doses of about 100 micrograms for me is is awful for, if I want to have a hard sort of what you call a spiritual or ego loss experience, or one of those really mentally sort of challenging or strong experiences at that dose. But I find it's one of the more physically pleasurable doses, or one of the more generally pleasurable doses without intellectual reward. Being that I often feel a lot of the come on effect of the LSD, and I slightly break over the come on effect in terms of and physical stimulation, in terms of the way my body feels, and in terms of the amount of energy it gives me. And I find this dose is really good for just a mood lift for me. I wouldn't really recommend this for most people, as some people are more sensitive and some people aren't. And yeah, it doesn't really give me any of the mental attributes, so I find this is actually for me a good dose to socialize on, a good dose to enjoy. It's a recreational dose in terms of it's purely just recreational, it's purely just fun. This is a kind of dose I do sometimes when I want to get into slightly more philosophical conversations with friends and sort of enjoy, I don't know, a different aspect of life in general without really getting seriously into the nitty gritty. And for this reason, this is my. I use LSD at this dose most commonly. Sometimes with other chemicals as well, I won't lie. Okay, so we'll move on to 150 micrograms, which would really be 138 or 36 to 164, basically, depending on, if the tabs badly that have been produced. If your sheet has one tab that's just got bad proportions, you'll have 10 micrograms more or less, sort of thing, and that's what we're basing it on. I find this dose is where I start actually entering the headspace now. So this is where it starts affecting me. I sort of feel my chest kind of opening up, if that makes sense. The sort of floaty feeling that you get, I kind of start getting that. I start getting the mental weirdness that you get from LSD from this, and the visuals start coming on. But it's like I break through harder on the mental weirdness than I do on the visuals. But this is the start of where I can notice something different in my periphery. Nothing major, just an understanding that a visual thing is happening. This isn't just a breakthrough. This is slightly more than breakthrough. I'll get very small visuals, a bit of glossing over, and a really massive exacerbation of the sort of physical sensation. This is still comfortable. This is without it getting too weird, but this is where it starts to get weird at this dose for me. And then 200 milligrams is the next dose, and this I guess is what I would call the start of the strange dose. This is really the start of the strange dose. So this is when the physical disconnect starts getting quite hard, and when I'm getting real visuals, not extremely hard, but not so that they're just noticeable. At this level, I'm not just getting glossing over. I'm getting glossing over with warping. Not really colours, but some sort of a kind of distortion. I'll find not a heavy distortion, but some distortion, and noticeable kind of more soft colours or more hard colours. Like the contrast of colours hit me a lot harder at this dose. The physicalness is starting to hit me, and the mental energy is really hitting me at this dose. At about 200 micrograms, I find this is where the mental energy is pretty much going past that point of being completely crazy. Right now, 300 micrograms. I am in complete trip mode in terms of mentally. This for me, this is complete trip mode mentally. Visuals are starting to come along, starting to get some nice visuals at this point. Some real visuals, not just noticing a difference in texture and color. Actually, getting some sort of hieroglyphics kind of shit, and weird geometric patterns are starting to go under eyes, some trailing over eyes along with the warping effect, as I've mentioned. Really quite out of body thing. A lot of mental energy at this point. All the kind of strange thoughts you'd expect really at full manifestation. And I find that at higher doses, the manifestation of this is the same. So for me, this is the madness dose. This is the madness dose. Yeah, it's the start of that, but it's the madness without color dose, if that makes sense. So I am starting to get those visuals, and they aren't just small little visuals that I can ignore. These are pretty profound visuals, especially closed eye. I'm getting full geometrics closed eye when I get to about 300 milligrams. Then the next dose up is obviously 400 milligrams. And at this dose, I am pretty well completely toasted. Yeah, I kind of wonder if more is worth doing. Now, the highest dose I've done is actually 800 micrograms, I think, or I can't remember. There was a night I was going to do 1,200 because of the banned 1,200 mics, but I don't remember if I did this, so I can't say for sure. But I do know for sure I've taken 800 milligrams a few times. But anyway, we'll go back to the 400 milligrams. This is where I'm getting extreme visuals. Now, this is where I'm starting to not just get trails and quite vivid colours with open eyes. With open eyes, I am getting full visuals by this point. Sorry, I just have to do something in a browser there. So, at this point, with 400 micrograms, sorry, not milligrams, definitely not milligrams, that's a hell of a lot more LSD. With 400 micrograms at this point, yeah, I really get visuals. It's the kind of thing where I can touch something and I can feel it warping as I touch it. I can feel my body warping. I have the full mental energy. But like I said, that's pretty much there at the 300 microgram dose. It's just that now, the visuals, I'm pretty much soup at this point. Everything's soup. The whole world is turning into geometrics at this point. I am basically at full geometric capacity with some understanding of reality, but mainly an appreciation of geometrics. And as far as the body distortions and physical distortions are going, the whole death rebirth thing starts at about 300 micrograms as far as physically goes for me. At 400 micrograms, I am pretty much, just pushing that, constantly at this point. And yeah, that's kind of normal for me at this point. Sort of like the detachment from my legs, the detachment of understanding the movements, and it kind of feels like I'm turning into liquid, like I am bits of liquid sprinkling out kind of thing. I'm not sure if that makes sense. It'll make sense if you've tripped a few times, even on small doses, but it might not make sense if you've never taken LSD or other drugs such as LSD before. But this is the effect that this sort of dose generally seems to have on me. And for this reason, this is the complete insanity with trips dose. This is where, like I say, all the visuals are there. All the crazy thoughts are there. The 100 thoughts at once, and different visuals, different galaxies. The whole range is there at 400 micrograms for me. This is sufficient, and this will last for about 12 hours. I'll find it doesn't take too long to come up when you have this much. I don't find, but that probably varies from person to person. It generally takes me 3 hours at max to come up on acid anyway. On a 400 microgram dose, I start feeling it about an hour and a half in generally. And then we'll head on to the top dose. Now, at 800 micrograms, I actually didn't find any real difference between 800 micrograms and 400 micrograms. The only sort of observable difference, I guess the only observable difference is, yeah, just that at this sort of dose, I don't know, it seemed to last a lot longer. Like, I recall this sort of dose sort of lasting for about 23 to 25 hours. I'm not sure if that's normal. I'm not sure if that's supposed to happen, but that's the only expansion or the only thing I can really add to that dose. Because, in all honesty, at about 400 micrograms, I am pretty well falling out of reality in general, unless I've been taking LSD for a few days, in which case you build up a tolerance to LSD very fast. For those of you who don't know much about LSD, and if you take it every day, you could take 2 or 3 milligrams and just be nothing. You'd get what I mean if you take an acid every day for a few days, but it's not advisable. I may do a separate video on that due to our own experience, but I've never had that much, obviously, but there's a level that you just shouldn't get to, and in my opinion, there's no need to do 800 milligrams or really more than 800 micrograms. Jeez, there definitely isn't a reason to do 800 milligrams. Fuck me. To do 800 micrograms or 400 micrograms, more than 400 micrograms, but it's up to the individual, I guess. But yeah, that's all I've got to say about it, really. Obviously, like with every drug, it scales at dosage. Really, I'd say, if you want to sort of experiment, if you want to feel it but not overfeel it, and you're not used to hallucinogens anymore. If I were to re-go into it, I'd hit the 150 microgram mark, just because 100 micrograms is too soft an introduction, but 150 micrograms isn't so hard it's going to put me into the ground. For people who've never taken it, or for me, if I hadn't have taken it before or haven't taken it for months, 200 micrograms might be too hard a dose. 300 micrograms is certainly too hard a dose for a beginner, and 400 micrograms is psychiatric suicide for someone who hasn't done hallucinogens, unless they're just really, really free in the mind. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and hope you enjoyed it as well, Stalker. Bye.